This is an incredibly relaxing setup. I'm laying on my pig pretty much, and he's very relaxing. That's all I can say. Wanted to finish off the rest of this chapter. I've got Q-tips everywhere. I'm obsessed. I do want to read them in chapters instead of what I did before, but they are quite long. But I'm just going to carry on with it. If you don't remember what happened, watch my video. Okay. You ready for this? Right. Later, mid-morning, I sit in an armchair. The dishes are done and neatly stacked on the drainer. The laundry is in the machine. I've been keeping myself busy. But now I feel empty. It's true what Ben said. I have no memory. Nothing. There is not a single thing in this house that I remember seeing before. Not a single photograph, either around the mirror or in the scrapbook in front of me, that triggers a recollection of when it was taken. Not a moment with Ben that I can recall, other than since we met this morning. My mind feels totally empty. I close my eyes, try to focus on something, anything. Yesterday, last Christmas, any Christmas, my wedding. There is nothing. I stand up. I move through the house from room to room, slowly, drifting like a wraith, letting my hand brush the walls, the tables, the backs of the furniture, but not really touching any of it. How did I end up like this, I think? I look at the carpets, the patterned rugs, the china figurines on the mantelpiece, and ornamental plates arranged on the display racks in the dining room. I try to tell myself that this is mine. All mine, my home, my husband, my life. But these things do not belong to me. They are not part of me. In the bedroom, I open the wardrobe door and see a row of clothes I don't recognise, hanging neatly like empty versions of a woman I have never met. A woman whose home I was wandering through, whose soap and shampoo I have used, whose dressing gown I have discarded and slippers I am wearing. She is hidden to me, a ghostly presence, aloof and untouchable. The morning I had selected my underwear, guiltily, searching through the pairs of knickers, balled together with tights and stockings, as if I was afraid of being caught. I held my breath as I found knickers in silk and lace at the back of the drawer. Items bought to be seen as well as worn. Rearranging the unused ones exactly as I had found them, I chose a pale blue pair that seemed to have a matching bra and slipped them both on, before pulling a heavy pair of tights over the top, and then trousers and a blouse. I had sat down at the dressing table to examine my face in the mirror. Approaching my reflection cautiously, I traced the lines on my forehead, the folds of skin under my eyes. I smiled and looked at my teeth, and at the wrinkles that bunched around the edge of my mouth, the crow's feet that appeared. I noticed the blotches on my skin, a discoloration on my forehead that looked like a bruise that had not quite faded. I found some makeup and put a little on, a light powder, a touch of blusher. I pictured a woman, my mother I realise now, doing the same, calling it her war paint. And this morning, as I blotted my lipstick on a tissue and recapped the mascara, the word felt appropriate. I felt that I was going into some kind of battle. or that some kind of battle was coming to me. Sending me off to school, putting on her makeup. I tried to think of my mother doing something else. Anything. Nothing came. I saw only a void, vast gaps between tiny islands of memory, years of emptiness. Now in the kitchen, I open the cupboards, bags of pasta, packets of a rice labelled arborio, tins of kidney beans. I don't recognise this food. I remember eating cheese on toast, boiling the bag fish, corned beef sandwiches, or pull out a tin labelled chickpeas, a sachet of something called couscous. I don't know what those things are, let alone how to cook them. Then how do I survive as a wife? I look up at the white, clean board that Ben had shown me before he left. It is a dirty grey colour. Words have been scrawled on it and wiped out, replaced, amended, each leaving a faint residue. I wonder what I would find if I could go back and decipher the layers, if it were possible to delve into my past that way. But I realise that, even if it were possible, it would be futile. I am certain that all I would find are messages and lists, groceries to buy, tasks to perform. Is that really my life, I think? Is that all I am? I take the pen and add another note to the board. Pack bag for tonight, it says. Not much of a reminder, but my own. I hear a noise, a tune coming from my bag. I open it and empty its contents onto the sofa. My purse, some tissues, pens, a lipstick, a powder compact, a receipt for 2 coffees, a diary, just a couple of inches square with a floral design on the front and a pencil in its spine. I find something that I guess must be the phone that Ben described. It is small, plastic, with a keypad that makes it look like a toy. It is ringing, the screen flashing. I press what I hope is the right button. Hello, I say. The voice that replies is not Ben's. Hi, it says. Christine? Is that Christine Lucas? I don't want to answer. My surname seems as strange as my first name had. I feel as though any solid ground I had attained has vanished again, replaced by quicksand. Christine, are you there? Who can it be? Who knows where I am, who I am? I realise it could be anyone. I feel panic rise in me. My finger hovers over the button that will end the call. Christine, it's me, Dr. Nash, please answer. The name means nothing to me, but I still say, who is this? The voice takes on a new tone. Relief? It's Dr. Nash, he says. Your doctor? Another flash of panic. My doctor, I say. I'm not ill, I want to add, but I don't even know this. I feel my mind begin to spin. Yes, he says, but don't worry. We've just been doing some work on your memory. Nothing's wrong. I noticed the tense he had used. Have been. So this is something else I have no memory of. What kind of work, I say. I've been trying to help you to improve things, he says. Trying to work out exactly what's caused your memory problems and whether there's anything we can do about them. It makes sense, though another thought comes to me. Why had Ben not mentioned this doctor before he left this morning? How, I say. What have we been doing? We've been meeting over the last few weeks, a couple of times a week, give or take. It doesn't seem possible. Another person who I see regularly, who has left no impression on me whatsoever. But I've never met you before, I want to say. You could be anyone. The same could be said of the man I woke up with this morning, and he turned out to be my husband. I don't remember, I say instead. His voice softens. Don't worry, I know. If what he says is true, then he must understand that as well as anyone. He explains that our next appointment is today. Today, I say? I think back to what Ben told me this morning, to the list of jobs written on the board in the kitchen. But my husband hasn't mentioned anything to me, I realised. It is the first time I have referred to the man I woke up with in this way. There is a pause, and then Dr. Nash says, I'm not sure Ben knows you're meeting me. I notice that he knows my husband's name, but say, that's ridiculous. How can he not? He would have told me. What? She says, that's ridiculous. How can he not? He would have told me. Well, if he didn't know, he couldn't have told you. Anyway, there is a sigh. You'll have to trust me, he says. I can explain everything when we meet. We're really making progress. When we meet, how can we do that? The thought of going out without Ben, without him even knowing where I am, or who I'm with, terrifies me. Christine, he says, it's important. If you look in your diary, you'll see what I'm saying is true. Do you have it? It should be in your bag. I pick up the floral book from where it had fallen onto the sofa and register the shock of seeing a year printed on the front in gold lettering. 2007. 20 years later than it should be. Yes. Look at today's date, he says. November 30th. You should see our appointment. I don't understand how it can be November. December tomorrow. But still I skim through the leaves, thin as a tissue. On to today's date. There, tucked between the pages, is a piece of paper, and on it, printed in handwriting I don't recognise, are the words, November 30th, seeing Dr. Nash. Beneath them are the words, don't tell Ben. I wonder if Ben has read them, whether he looks through my things. I decide there is no reason he would. The other days are blank. No birthdays, no nights out, no parties. Does this really describe my life? Okay, I say. He explains that he will come and pick me up, that he knows where I live and he'll be there in an hour. But my husband, I say, it's okay. We'll be back long before he gets in from work, I promise. Trust me. The clock on the mantelpiece chimes and I glance at it. It is old-fashioned, a large dial in a wooden case, edged with Roman numerals. It reads 11:30. Next to it sits a silver key for winding it, something that I suppose Ben must remember to do every evening. It looks old enough to be an antique. I wonder how we came to own such a clock. Perhaps it has no history, or none with us at least, but it is simply something we once saw in a shop or on a market stall, and one of us liked it. Probably Ben, I think. I realise I don't like it. I'll see him just this once, I think, and then tonight, when he gets home, I will tell Ben. I can't believe I'm keeping something like this from him, not when I rely so utterly on him. But there is an odd familiarity to Dr. Nash's voice. Unlike Ben, he does not seem entirely alien to me. I realise I almost find it easier to believe that I've met him before than I do my husband. We're making progress, he said. I need to know what kind of progress he means. Okay, I say. Come. When he arrives, Dr. Nash suggests we go for a cup of coffee. Are you thirsty? He says. I don't think there's much point in driving all the way to the office. I mostly wanted to talk to you today anyway. I nod and say yes. I was in the bedroom when he arrived and watched him park his car and lock it. Saw him rearrange his hair, smooth his jacket, pick up his briefcase. Not him, I thought, as he nodded to the workmen who were unloading tools from a van. But then he walked up the path to our house. He looked young, too young to be a doctor. And though I don't know what I'd been expecting him to be wearing, it was not the sports jacket and grey corduroy trousers that he had on. There's a park at the end of the street, he says. I think it has a cafe. We could go there? We walk together. The cold is biting and I pull my scarf tight around my neck. I'm glad I have my bag and the mobile phone that Ben has given me. Glad too that Dr. Nash has not insisted we drive somewhere. There is some part of me that trusts this man, but another, larger part tells me he could be anyone, a stranger. I'm an adult, but a damaged one. It would be easy for this man to take me somewhere, though I don't know what he would want to do. I am as vulnerable as a child. We reach the main road that separates the end of the street from the park opposite and wait to cross. The silence between us feels oppressive. I'd intended to wait until we were sitting down before asking him, but found myself speaking. What sort of doctor are you, I'm saying? What do you do? How did you find me? He looks over to me. I'm a neuropsychologist, he says. He is smiling. I wonder if I ask him the same question every time we meet. I specialise in patients with brain disorders, with an interest in some of the newer functional neuroimaging techniques. For a long time I've been particularly interested in researching memory, process and function. I heard about you through the literature on the subject and tracked you down. It wasn't too difficult. A car rounds a bend further up the road and heads towards us. The literature? Yes, there have been a couple of case studies written about you. I got in touch with the place where you were being treated before you came to live at home. Why? Why did you want to find me? He smiles. Because I thought I could help you. I've been working with patients with these sorts of problems for a little while. I believe they can be helped. However, they require more intensive input than the usual 1 hour per week. I had a few ideas about how real improvements could be effected and wanted to try some of them out. He pauses. Plus, I've been writing a paper on your case. The definitive work, you might say. He begins to laugh, but cuts it short when I do not join in. He clears his throat. Your case is unusual. I believe we can discover a lot more about the way memory works than we already know. The car passes and we cross the road. I feel myself get anxious, uptight. Brain disorders, researching, tracked you down. I try to breathe, to relax, but I find I cannot. There are 2 of me now, in the same body. One is a 47-year-old woman, calm, polite, aware of what kind of behaviour is appropriate and what is not. And the other is in her 20s and screaming. I can't decide which is me, but the only noise I hear is that of distant traffic and the shouts of children from the park. So I guess it must be the first. On the other side I stop and say, look, what's going on? I woke up this morning in a place I've never seen, but that's apparently my home, lying next to a man I've never met who tells me I've been married to him for years. And you seem to know more about me than I know about myself. He nods slowly. You have amnesia, he says, putting his hand on my arm. You've had amnesia for a long time. You can't retain new memories, so you've forgotten much of what's happened to you for your entire adult life. Every day you wake up as if you were a young woman. Some days you wake as if you were a child. Somehow it seems worse coming from him, a doctor. So it's true. I'm afraid so, yes. The man at home is your husband, Ben. You've been married to him for years, since long before your amnesia began. I nod. Shall we go on? I say yes, and we walk into the park. The path circles in edge, and there is a children's playground nearby, next to a hut from which I see people emerge carrying trays of snacks. We head there, and I take a seat at one of the chipped formica tables while Dr. Nash orders our drinks. When he returns, he is carrying 2 plastic cups filled with strong coffee. Mine is black, his white. He adds sugar from the bowl on the table, but offers none to me. And that is that. More than anything, that convinces me that we have met before. He looks up and asks me how I hurt my forehead. What? I say at first. But then I remember the bruise I saw this morning. My makeup has clearly not covered it. That? I say. I'm not sure. It's nothing, really. It doesn't hurt. He doesn't answer. He stirs his coffee. So my husband looks after me at home, I say. He looks up. Yes, though he hasn't always. At first your condition was so severe that you required round-the-clock care. It's only been fairly recently that Ben has felt he could look after you at home. So the way I feel at the moment is an improvement then. I'm glad I can't remember the time when things were worse. He must love me very much, I say, more to myself than Nash. He nods. There is a pause. We both sip our drinks. Yes, I think he must. I smile and look down at my hands holding the hot drink, at the gold wedding band, at the short nails, my legs crossed politely. I don't recognise my own body. Why doesn't my husband know that I'm seeing you? I say. He sighs and closes his eyes. I'll be honest, he says, clasping his hands together and leaning forward in his seat. Initially I asked you not to tell Ben you were seeing me. A jolt of fear goes through me, almost an echo, yet he does not look untrustworthy. Go on, I say. I want to believe he can help me. Several people, doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, and so on, have approached you and Ben in the past, wanting to work with you, but he has always been extremely reluctant to let you see the professionals. He has made it very clear to you that you have had extensive treatment before, and in his opinion it has achieved nothing than to upset you. Naturally, he wanted to spare you and himself from any more upset. Of course, he doesn't want to raise my hopes. So you persuaded me to come and see you without him knowing? Yes, I did approach Ben first. We spoke on the phone, and I even asked him to meet with me so that I could explain what I had to offer. But he refused, so I contacted you directly. Another jolt of fear, as if from nowhere. How? I say. He looked down at his drink. I went to see you. I waited until you came out of the house and then introduced myself. And I agreed to see you, just like that? No, not at first, no. I had to persuade you that you could trust me. I suggested that we should meet once, just for one session, without Ben's knowledge, if that was what it took. I said I would explain to you what I wanted, and explain to you why I wanted you to come and see me, and what I thought I could offer you. And I agreed. He looks up. Yes, he says. I told you that after that first visit it was entirely up to you whether you chose to tell Ben or not. But if you decided not to, I would ring you to make sure you remembered our appointments and so on. And I chose not to. Yes, that's right. You've spoken about wanting to wait until we were making progress before telling him. You felt that was better. And we were? Sorry. And are we? What? Making progress? Duh. He swallows some more coffee then puts his cup back on the table. I believe so, yes. Though progress is somewhat difficult to quantify exactly. But lots of memories seem to have come back to you over the last few weeks, many of them for the first time, as far as we know. And there are certain truths that you are aware of more often when there were few before. For example, you occasionally wake up and remember that you're married now, and he pauses. And I say, and well, you're gaining independence, I think. Independence? Yes, you don't rely on Ben so much as you did. Or me. That's it, I think. That is the progress he is talking about. Independence. Perhaps he means I can make it to the shops, or even a library without a chaperone. Though right now I am not even sure that much is true. In any case, I have not yet made enough progress for me to wave it proudly in front of my husband. Not even enough for me to always wake up remembering I have one. But that's it. It's important, he says. Don't underestimate it, Christine. I don't say anything. I take a sip of my drink and look around the cafe. It is almost empty. There are voices from a small kitchen at the back. The occasional rattle as water in an urn reaches boiling point. The noise of children playing in the distance. It is difficult to believe that this place is so close to my home, and yet I have no memory of ever being here before. So you say we've been meeting for a few weeks, I say to Dr. Nash. So what have we been doing? Do you remember anything of our previous sessions? Anything at all? No, I say. Nothing. As far as I know, I'm meeting you for the first time today. Forgive me for asking, he says. As I said, you have flashes of memory sometimes. It seems you know more on some days than on others. I don't understand, I say. I have no memory of ever meeting you before, or of what happened yesterday, or the day before, or last year for that matter. Yet I can remember some things from years ago, my childhood, my mother. I remember being at university just. I don't understand how these old memories could have survived when everything else has been wiped clean. He nods throughout my question. I don't doubt he has heard it before. Possibly I ask the same thing every week. Possibly we have exactly the same conversation. Memory is a complex thing, he says. Human beings have a short-term memory that can store facts and information for about a minute or so, but also a long-term memory. Here we can store huge quantities of information and retain it for a seemingly indefinite length of time. We now know that these two functions seem to be controlled by different parts of the brain, with some neutral connections between them. There is also a part of the brain which seems to be responsible for taking short-term, transient memories and coding them as long-term memories for recall much later. He speaks easily, quickly, as if he is now on solid territory. I would have been like that once, I suppose, sure of myself. There are two main types of amnesia, he says. Most commonly, the affected person cannot tell. Sorry, I'm losing it. Most commonly, the affected person cannot recall past events, with more recent events being most severely affected. So if, for example, the sufferer has a motor accident, they may not remember the accident or the days or weeks preceding it, but can remember everything up to, say, 6 months before the accident perfectly well. I nod. And the other? The other is rarer, he says. Sometimes there is an inability to transfer memories from short-term storage into long-term storage. People with this condition live in the moment, only able to recall the immediate past, and then only for a small amount of time. He stops talking, as if waiting for me to say something. It is as if we each have our lines, have rehearsed this conversation often. I have both, I say. A loss of the memories I had, plus an inability to form new ones. He clears his throat. Yes, unfortunately. It's not common, but perfectly possible. What's unusual in your case, however, is the pattern of your amnesia. Generally, you have no consistent memory of anything that happened since your early childhood, but you seem to process new memories in a way I've never come across before. If I left this room now and returned in 2 minutes, most people with anterograde amnesia would not remember having met me at all. Certainly not today. But you seem to remember whole chunks of time, up to 24 hours, which you then lose. That's not typical. To be honest, it doesn't make any sense, considering the way we believe memory works. It suggests you are able to transfer things from short-term to long-term storage perfectly well. I don't understand why you can't retain them. I may be leading a shattered life, but at least it is shattered into pieces large enough for me to maintain a semblance of independence. I guess that means I'm lucky. Why? I say. What has caused it? He doesn't say anything. The room goes quiet. The air feels still and sticky. When he speaks, his words seem to echo off the walls. Many things can cause an impairment of memory, he says. Either long-term or short-term. Disease, trauma, drug use. The exact nature of the impairment seems to differ, depending on the part of the brain that has been affected. Yes, I say, but what has caused mine? He looks at me for a moment. What has Ben told you? I think back to our conversation in the bedroom. An accident, he said. A bad accident. He didn't really tell me anything, I say. Nothing specific, anyway. He just said I had a bad accident. Yes, he says, reaching for his bag that sits under the table. Your amnesia was caused by trauma. That's true, at least partly. He opens his bag and takes out a book. At first I wonder if he is going to consult his notes. But instead he passed it across the table to me. "Look, I want you to have this," he says. "It will explain everything, better than I can, about what has caused your condition especially, but other things as well." I take it from him. It is brown, bound in leather, and pages held closed by an elastic band. I take that off and open it at random. The paper is heavy and faintly lined with a red margin, and the page is filled with dense handwriting. "What is it?" I say. "It's a journal," he says. "One that you've been keeping over the past few weeks." I'm shocked. "A journal? I wonder why he has it." "Yes, a record of what we've been doing recently. I asked you to keep it. We've been doing a lot of work around trying to find out exactly how your memory behaves. I thought it might be helpful for you to keep a record of what we've been doing." I look at the back book in front of me. "So I've written this?" "Yes. I told you to write whatever you like in it. Many amnesiacs have tried similar things, but usually it's not as helpful as you might think if there's such a small window of memory. But as there are some things that you can remember for a whole day, I didn't see why you shouldn't just jot down some notes in a book every evening. I thought it might help you to maintain a thread of memory from one day to the next. Plus, I felt that memory might be like a muscle, something that can be strengthened through exercise." "And you've been reading it as we've been going along?" "No," he says. "You've been writing it in private." "But how?" I begin, and then say, "Ben's been reminding me to write in it." He shakes his head. "I suggest that you keep it secret," he said. "You've been hiding it at home. I've been calling you to tell you where it's hidden." "Every day?" "Yes, more or less." "Not Ben." He pauses and says, "No, Ben hasn't read it." "I wonder why not, what it might contain that I do not want my husband to see. What secrets might I have? Secrets I don't even know myself." "But you've read it." "You've left it with me a few days ago," he said. "You said you wanted me to read it, that it was time." I look at the book. I am excited. A journal, a link back to a lost past, albeit only recent. "Have you read it all?" "Yes," he says, "most of it. I think I've read everything important anyway." He pauses and looks away from me, scratching the back of his neck. Embarrassed, I think. I wonder if he is telling the truth, what the book contains. He drains the last of his mug of coffee and says, "I didn't force you to let me see it. I want you to know that." I nod and finish the rest of my drink in silence, flicking through the pages of the book as I do so. On the inside of the front cover is a list of dates. "What are these?" I ask. "They're the dates we've been meeting," he says, "as well as the ones we had planned. We've been arranging them as we go along. I've been calling to remind you, asking you to look in your journal. I think of the yellow note tucked between the pages of my diary today." "But today?" "Today I had your journal," he says, "so he wrote a note instead." I nod and look through the rest of the book. It is filled with dense handwriting that I don't recognise. Page after page, days and days of work. I wonder how I found the time, but then I think of the board in the kitchen and the answer is obvious. I've had nothing else to do. I put it back on the table. A young man wearing jeans and a t-shirt comes in and glances over to where we sit, before ordering a drink and settling at the table with a newspaper. He doesn't look up at me again. And the 20-year-old me is upset. I feel as though I'm invisible. "Shall we go?" I say. We walk back the way we had come. The sky has clouded over and a thin mist hangs in the air. The ground feels soggy underfoot. It feels like walking on quicksand. On the playground I see a roundabout, turning slowly even though no one is riding it. "We don't normally meet here," I say when we reach the road. "In the cafe, I mean." No, normally we meet in my office. We do exercises, tests and things." "So why here today?" "I really just wanted to give you your book back," he says. "I was worried about you not having it." "I've come to rely on it," I say. "In a way, yes." We cross the road and walk back down the house I share with Ben. I can see Dr. Nash's car, still parked where he left it, the tiny garden outside our window, the short path and neat flower beds. I still can't quite believe this is a place where I live. Do you want to come in, I say? Another drink? He shakes his head. No, I won't, thanks. I've got to get going. Julie and I have plans this evening. He stands for a moment looking at me. I notice his hair, cut short, neatly parted. The way his shirt has a vertical stripe that clashes with the horizontal one on his pullover. I realise that he is only a few years older than I thought I was when I woke this morning. Julie is your wife? He smiles and shakes his head. No, my girlfriend. Actually, my fiancé. We got engaged, I keep forgetting. I smile back at him. These are the details I should remember, I suppose. The little things. Perhaps it is these trivialities I've been writing down in my book. These small hooks on which a whole life is hung. Congratulations, I say, and he thanks me. I feel like I ought to ask more questions, ought to show more interest, but there is little point. Anything he tells me now I will have forgotten by the time I wake tomorrow. Today is all I have. I ought to get back anyway, I say. We're going away this weekend, to the coast. I need to pack later. He smiles. Goodbye, Christine, he says. He turns to leave, but then looks back at me. Your journal has my numbers written in them, he says, at the front. Call me if you'd like to see me again. To carry on with our treatment, I mean. Okay? If, I say, I remember my journal, the appointments that we had penciled in between now and the end of the year. I thought we had more sessions booked. You'll understand when you read your book, he says. It will all make sense, I promise. Okay, I say. I realise that I trust him, and I am glad. Glad that I don't have only my husband to rely on. It's up to you, Christine. Call me whenever you like. I will, I say. And then he waves goodbye and gets into his car, and checking over his shoulder, he pulls out into the road and is gone. I make a cup of coffee and carry it into the living room. From outside I hear the sound of whistling, punctured by heavy drilling and an occasional burst of staccato laughter. But even that recedes into a gentle buzz as I sit in the armchair. The sun shines weakly through the net curtains, and I feel its dull warmth on my arms and thighs. I take the journal out of the bag. I feel nervous. I do not know what this book will contain, what shocks and surprises, what mysteries. I see the scrapbook on the coffee table. In that book is a version of my past, but one chosen by Ben. Does the book I hold contain another? I open it. The first page is unlined. I have written my name in black ink across its centre. Christine Lucas. It's a wonder I haven't written private beneath it or keep out. Something has been added, something unexpected, terrifying. More terrifying than anything else I have seen today. There, beneath my name, in blue ink and capital letters, are 3 words. Don't trust Ben. There is nothing I can do but turn the page. I begin to read my history. Dun dun dun. And the next part is called The Journal of Christine Lucas. They are very long. Oh, actually, that's not very long. Anyway, so things have taken a turn. Why can't she trust Ben? Okay. Am I close enough?